Welcome to my February wrap-up. Let's talk about what I read last month. It is unusual, but everything that I read I physically own, which is so nice. A lot of what I read is through the library or audio, so I did immersive read some of these, but it is still kind of special that I have all the physical books, and I am knocking books off of my physical TBR as well. We know I like the stats, so I read 5 books, 1,083 pages, 45.8 hours of audio, so way less audio than normal. My average rating was 4.2 stars. Something I started in 2026, which is new for me, is a TBR wheel. Not all of the books that I'm reading this year are on the wheel, but it is a way for me to tackle a lot of my 2026 TBR. I have been having a lot of fun with it, and 3 of the books that are here were from the wheel, which is exciting. Trying to read a book in a week usually isn't that hard for me, and I feel very productive. I would say there's a little bit of pressure sometimes just because I want to film and get the video edited and out in a prompt time for you guys, but besides that, it's mostly been all positive, and I'm getting to check books off of my list that I wanted to read this year. If you like TBR wheel videos as well as monthly wrap-ups, then please think about liking and subscribing to my page. I would love for you to be here and talk about books with me. So Strange Beast I thought was going to be a standalone, but as I was reading this and eating it up, I went to actually see if the author had written anything else, only to find out that we're getting a book 2, which when I actually finished this, I was like, thank God we're getting a book 2. I'm going to put book 2 also on the screen because I want to show you the cover and how gorgeous it is. I am obsessed with the covers of these books. I just think they are so pretty and really set the tone for the overall themes of the books. Strange Beast is a Sherlock Holmes retelling. It is also sapphic, which means that the women are lesbians, which we love, as well as our author is also a queer author. So if you're trying to diversify your authors as well as the characters that you read in your books, this needs to be on your list. The creatures that are in this are so unique and different. They are like full-on monsters, and I love that. I love the unique take and how they are described and just the uniqueness of the creatures. I don't want to give spoilers, but it's not just vampires and werewolves. While there are potentially that in the book, there are like other beings that aren't your typical beings, and when you read a lot of fantasy, it's always nice to see a refreshing take on creatures specifically and like something new or something different. Even if it's not new, it's like, oh, I haven't heard of that in a long time. So our characters are rivals. One of them is ancestor of Dracula, and one of them is Sherlock Holmes's daughter. Their dads are really well-known people. This is set in London and England, in Paris, in the catacombs. So you're going underground, and it's very like secret society-esque, and they are such strong women. The characters have such good banter and conversation. They're such witty and smart women. I love reading about smart women and intelligent people. Just such a refreshing take. I think that if you're okay with a fantasy book being set in our world, as it is more like a historical fiction, urban fantasy in England and not like a made-up world, that you would really enjoy this. I think the only reason you might not like this is if you want a made-up world, as well as while it does move consistent and it is a good old-fashioned whodunit murder mystery, it does take a while to get really going as far as the murder mystery. I wasn't ever bored, but I would say that if you want like a really fast plot, that this probably isn't for you. I felt like it moved pretty consistently. I could see others thinking maybe it's a little slower because it is gothic, so it has a lot of like elements of atmosphere and like building of like darker themes, and so I like enjoyed that part, but could see other people wanting that cut out to get to the point faster. So just know that this does have darker gothic themes, and it is a mystery, but I can't say enough good things about this, and I'm looking forward to book 2. Another one that I read that was also from my wheel is Bring Me Your Midnight. This has been on my physical TBR for a hot minute, so I'm really glad that the TBR wheel had me pick this up. This is about witches on an island in a coven that has made an island their home, and then the mainland is where the humans and the regular old people live, and they stay separate. Our main character is making really hard life decisions and basically has an arranged marriage with the son of the governor or mayor of the town to help form an alliance between the two and to help the human folk be more trusting and see that all the witches are okay. However, there is another mystery man that comes into play, and everything that our main character has thought is true and has been told is true like her whole life maybe isn't true, and is having to process a lot of her life history of the coven and what she has been told versus what might be reality. As we know, history can change based off of who writes it and who tells it. If you like islands, if you like fantasy with water, and if you like witches that are using their magic to make enchanting tea, using their magic to enhance perfume and like make herbs and plants, I think that you would really enjoy this. I did find our main character a little immature at times, but I think that this lends a little more YA, so there's a little grace for that. The ending wasn't exactly what I would have hoped that it was. Not any spoilers there, just that what ends up happening, I think it could have been even better, but I understand that I'm not going to like the ending of every book. This was really enchanting. If you have read Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young, that the themes in this are similar to that, and this is more magic realism. And so if you wanted this to have even more magic and be even more lush and have even more of like the witchy aspect, that I think you would really like this. And I wanted to show you what this looked like without the dust jacket, as it is just so pretty, as well as look at the enchanting map that we get. Just vibes. It just really sets the tone. And then we have artwork in the back of the book as well. I started my Robin Hobb journey. This is the illustrated, I want to say 10th anniversary edition or 15th anniversary edition, 25 years ago. And it's also really heavy. But I was so excited to dive into this, and as we can see, I have all of her books that I'm going to start working through for the rest of the year. I don't have to read all 16 books in 2026. I'm really trying to savor this, as I can only read it for the first time once, and I hear that this is such an epic world, and so I want to live in it as long as I want to, really. I don't have a timeline for myself. I usually try to read a book in a certain amount of time, or I know that it's this amount of pages, but specifically with Robin Hobb, I really just want to try to do maybe one a month, unless I want to read two a month, or if I don't want to read one a month and I want to read one in 2 months. I started book 1. What I really like is we start at the very beginning, and so we start where our main character Fitz has his earliest memories and work forward, and that is something that I really appreciate as someone who wants all the details, all of the backstory. I want the full picture. I really like that we're going to get that with our character Fitz and get to know him so well and get to know all the parts that make him who he is. I think will be really special. This is a fantasy world, but it takes a bit for you to really get going, as book 1 really, this is very much like a character study and following Fitz, and we don't go very far in book 1. He's just kind of growing up as a bastard in this kingdom and what that looks like. The world itself we don't get a whole lot of information on in the first book. You have animal companions, which I really appreciate. I love myself an animal companion, but something that I don't see people talk about is that the beginning of the chapters are like Fitz diary entries, a journal of like his life. He's documenting his life or explaining a person, description of something, and again writing, and then we go back to the story. And so that kind of took me out of the book sometimes. I'm getting used to the writing style, but it is a little something different that you have to get used to. Also, these are longer chapters, and I am someone that shorter chapters really help me read faster. I really don't know why, but it is a thing that helps me. And so the longer chapters were definitely like, because I want to put the book down when I finish a chapter, but I couldn't always do that with this, as I sometimes have limited time. I found myself only wanting to pick this up when I had quality time to invest in it. I'm hoping to continue on with book 2 in March, see where we go and what happens next with our beloved character. I think that if you're okay with a very slow plot and very slow payoff and being more with a character-driven fantasy, that you will also really enjoy this. I just think you need to have your expectations set when you start. It's not going to be quick and fast and high stakes at the onset. It's not that. It's very much like a slow, lived-in, established fantasy world with lots of elements, and we get a little bit of it at a time as we pick up another chunker. I've been reading some thick books, and I'm so proud of myself that I'm getting through these. This was my last wheel spin. So excited that I got this, as it is by a Black author, so it's perfect for Black History Month in February. I was really hoping my wheel would give me a Black author or a BIPOC author, as I did not have one in my February TBR, as my monthly TBRs have to be small as I'm doing my wheel. So it worked out perfect. The universe answered. I also want to show you this book and how pretty it is. This is book 2 to Immortal Dark. We also get a map, which I love a map. I love these books. I got this as a birthday gift from one of my mutuals, and I am so grateful. I love these on my shelves. They're so pretty. Book 2 to Immortal Dark, and it is dark academia, gothic, lots of vampires, and the main vampire in this reminds me so much of Klaus Michelson from the Vampire Diaries, or the originals. Klaus is such a complicated character, but I love him so much. I really do love him. I do. I love our complicated villain vampire in this book. I really do. This is enemies to lovers to enemies again. I love that trope. I love when authors give us that. The banter, so good. This follows sisters who are human, who are at the academy, and there are vampires at the academy as well as other humans. You're having to navigate among these monsters, and the houses are haunted or enchanted with like magical spells. And so one thing that I really appreciate about this book is just all the uniqueness of it and the world in general. And so something different about this that is done with the vampires specifically is depending on where they bite you, it depends on what they see or feel while they drink from you, and the human also gets that. One bite could be a memory of loss, another bite could be arousal, and then they each, the vampire and the human, get to see the other person's POV. I think it is such a unique idea. But in tandem with that is like the houses, each room can have like a different emotion. So one could focus on shame, one could be joy, one could be anger. And so again, just lots of uniqueness that when you read a lot of books and you read a lot of vampire books, that I appreciate when authors give us something new. Why we love reading, right, is to find something new and different. I think that this being a book 2, we get so many different side stories, it was almost too much. And I can't say for sure until we get book 3 and we're able to read book 3, but I think that there were times where things could have been trimmed down, but I can't say that until we get the rest of the story. I did enjoy this more than book 1 in a lot of ways, as we did get such expansion of the world and the characters, and we were given so much more, and I really appreciated that, as book 1 really followed one main character the majority of the book, and in this book we get like different POVs and different locations as well as new characters. And so I think I really did enjoy this one more. It was just really long. And it's okay if it's long. I just like my pages earned. I don't know if my pages were completely earned until I read the rest of the story. So we're going to hold judgment until we get the rest of it. But if you like dark academia, if you are looking for diversity and you love a good mystery and you want imperfect characters, because that's something else about this world, it's not just our vampires, but even our humans are so flawed and fragile, and no one is perfect or making the correct decisions, as well as just vampires because they're so old. And so I just really appreciate the flawed characters that we get in this world. This also has just such good lore and vampire lore and ancient artifacts and history. Like, it just feels so intentional, and I'm honestly really impressed with this author, and this being the first series and her debut series, I'm really impressed with how good this is. Last up, we have The Raven Scholar. I did this as a buddy read with a friend of mine on Fable, and we had a really good time reading it together. This is over 600 pages, and one thing that I want everyone to know is that the bulk of this is a week's worth of time. So in this world, this is a week of the story happens within about 7 days, and then there's a little bit of an ending after that. As you can imagine, moves really slow, as you have 600 pages worth of story, and yet you only move a week. And I did not know that. I was expecting this to go a lot further and we were to get a lot more information than we did, because we only get a glimpse into this world. With that being said, I had a really good time. It's multi-POV and it's multi-timeline. One of the multi-POVs is one of the main animals, which is unique and fun and added such a good layer of humor to the story. This is political intrigue on steroids, okay? So much political intrigue. So if you're going into this because of the animals, just know that it's a lot of political intrigue. Part of the animals is the humans are in different groups of animal palaces. So you either grow up in the tiger palace and you have traits of the tiger and that's your personality, or you grow up in the raven palace and you have traits of the raven, how you are seen in society. Very unique take. I really appreciated that. I loved the fox and the personality of the foxes. For the amount of investment that this book is, I think it could have been trimmed down. I do think that I didn't need everything that was given to me, but I did really like the ending and the setup for book 2. So I will continue on with book 2. This is trials and picking the next emperor. The players on the board, as far as the contenders to be emperor, are going through trials to decide who the next emperor is going to be. One of the candidates has been unalived, and we're trying to figure out, while also having the trial and the festivities and such a busy time at the palace, figure out who unalived one of the contestants and why. As well as, like I said, there is multi-timeline timeline, so you're seeing things that have happened in the past and the generation before the children that we're seeing now, so what happened with their parents. I really like the concept of this book, and I think it's a good book, and I understand why it is so loved in the bookish community and the hype that it is getting. I do think I would have enjoyed it more if it was shorter, as again, it is such a character-driven plot that I think I could have done with a little less. But it was still really good, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to book 2. And I think that if you like animal companions, trials, a good mystery, and you're okay with a slower plot, that you would enjoy this as well. Those are the 5 books that I got to in February. I am in the middle of a couple books, and so I wanted to talk about those briefly. In February, I got sick with COVID, as well as some life changes were happening, so I wasn't able to be online with you guys as much, as well as to read as much. Some of the books I started that I didn't finish, I will finish in March, and so I think I will have a lot to talk about in March, but I technically have started them in February. Sword of Kaigen, I technically started in January, and I haven't got very far. I have read Bled Over Brighthaven, which is also by this author, and I think this author just does telling you and less of showing you, and I don't prefer that as much as a writing style. I just want to see it for myself and not be told it as much, and so it's making this a little hard as well, but I am enjoying the world. I know it's a beloved book. I just need to get more into it, but it's making it a little hard to get into it. So I'm actually going to buddy read this with someone in March, and we're going to do 50 pages a day so that I have to get through it and I can get more enmeshed and attached to the characters. So I'm actually really looking forward to having someone to read this with me. Dungeon Crawler Carl, my fiance and I started in January, and we're only reading it once or twice a week depending on our schedules when we can sit down and read it at the same time. So it is a bit slow going, but that's okay, as I read multiple books at a time, so when I'm not reading this, I'm reading other books. We are almost through with this, and so we will probably start book 2 also in March, so we'll finish book 1 and start book 2 is my hope, but if not, that's okay. For a sci-fi read and a bit of a lighter, fun time, we have been reading this together, and that's been really fun to talk about and just do together as a way to connect without electronics. And then another book that I have almost finished and could have almost been in this wrap-up if February wasn't a short month, because I technically finished it March 1st. So it's going to be in my March wrap-up, but was Get Over It, April Evans, which is a new release of a queer rom-com series. I love this author. She is a go-to author for me for a queer romance. This is book 2 in like an interconnected standalone series, and so I read this, or most of it, in February and talk about it in March. But these are kind of what I've been reading lately. I'd love to know in the comments if you've read any of these or what your favorite book was in February, as it was a shorter month. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next one.